Whatever you do, just don't forget about the present. The present is the time, you've got to do that. Worrying gets in the way of things.
Welcome back to another episode of the Directors Club podcast, brought to you by Cumbria Chamber of Commerce. In this series, we get to explore some of the most interesting characters, directors and leaders from Cumbria, and on occasion, beyond. The Directors Club is kindly sponsored by Rachel Bell Wealth Management and Muckle LLP. Today I'm here with James Stevens from English Lakes Ice Cream, and anyone that knows me will know that the double jersey ice cream from English Lakes is just unbelievable. I love it. Also honourable mention to Thunder and Lightning, so if you ever see it, you definitely need to try it. I did ask if there was any jobs going at taste testing, but unfortunately there isn't, so I had to ask him about his career instead. I hope you enjoy it. The first one I always start with is, can you start by telling me a bit about your background? Where are you from?
What, me personally, or the business?
You personally.
My background, okay, so I've been involved with my background really is wholesale frozen food distribution. Mm-hmm. So I used to work with my dad. We had an ice cream and frozen food distribution company based in Carlisle and also in Kirkham near Preston. So we had a business called Speedy Serve, which used to supply lots of ice cream and frozen food products all over the northwest of England. And then we sold the business. I was a shareholder, and we sold the business in 2011. We sold the business. So I worked for the company that bought us out for about 4 years. And one of the products that we used to buy in fairly big quantities was actually English Lakes ice cream. So I knew the owner of English Lakes, the then owner of English Lakes ice cream, was a guy called Peter Fryer. And I knew Peter fairly well, just because I was one of his biggest customers. And he was wanting to retire, and he said to me, listen, I need to sell this business. Can you help me sell it? And would you fancy coming in to help run the business? Because I can't sell it if I haven't got anyone to run it. And lo and behold, that's why I'm here. So I knew of some interested parties for the business, and the current owner, Robin Graham, and his wife, they don't work in the business on a day-to-day basis because Robin's owns quite a lot of other businesses. Lo and behold, they bought English Lakes in September 2019, and then I was appointed to run the business basically. Mm-hmm. And that's where we are. That's my background ultimately.
So going right back to the very beginning, you're from Cumbria, born and bred. Is that fair to say?
I grew up in Carlisle. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't born there, but I lived there from the age of 3 until the age of 19. So yes, I grew up in Carlisle. I've not lived in Carlisle since 1993, but my parents were based up there, and my mum moved away from Cumbria in 5 years ago, I think it is. So I always used to go back up to Carlisle, Mm-hmm. So I've always had a lot of links with Cumbria. But yes, I'm born and bred, lived there from the age of 3 until the age of 19. But I've always had lots of links there.
Mm-hmm. And when you were right back at school, did you ever think you would end up managing director of an ice cream company that makes absolutely amazing ice cream?
No, not really.
So what did you want to do? Did you have a dream that you were going to go and do something?
To be honest with you, I suppose it could have been a possibility, but you never, because my dad's business was a frozen food and ice cream wholesaler. So mm-hmm. There was always an off chance that I would have got involved with that business when I was at school, but it wasn't really what I wanted to do. I had visions of working in a business but probably going down the route of, management training courses. Living in London, I wanted to live down in London or Manchester, one of the big cities, and work for a bigger company, which I did for a time. I did actually do that. I got on a graduate training scheme up in Edinburgh with Sainsbury's. So yeah, I suppose when I was at school, I envisaged working in marketing or accountancy or something like that for a big corporation, if you like. And I imagined putting my suit on and getting on the tube in London and going to some fancy office somewhere. But yeah, so not really, but there you go. But I have been involved with this industry for 25 years, so I know it pretty well.
And what was it like going to work for someone like Sainsbury's? What did you do there, and what did you learn that sort of shaped where you are now?
Well, when I was at Sainsbury's, I was on the graduate trainee scheme. When I finished, I went to university and I got on their graduate trainee scheme as far back as 1998, and that was like, that was getting a job where you had to go to lots of interviews and take tests and exams and all sorts of things. So it was quite a privilege to get offered the job, because it was, they had a lot of applicants, and I was only involved with it for about a year. I wasn't there for that long because another opportunity came up. But yeah, you learn a lot. You learn a lot more than you think at the time, because you spend a lot of time filling in books and doing tests and going on courses. But also you do a lot of things like, you spend a hell of a lot of time stacking shelves when you're learning at a company like Sainsbury's as a graduate trainee, But you look back on it, and yeah, you do actually learn a lot more than you think at the time when you work for companies like that. Definitely.
Yeah, I think you absorb an awful lot, don't you? You see and absorb what's going on around you an awful lot more, I think, than you appreciate sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you went from there, and you've been involved in ice cream for 25 years. How?
Yes, but not in manufacturing. I've never been involved for a company that actually made ice cream until I got involved with Lakes Ice Cream, which was we were just a wholesaler. We used to buy in products like Magnums and Ben and Jerry's and lots of different brands, and we used to distribute it. So I've only been involved with the manufacturing process of ice cream since I joined Lakes Ice Cream.
And how has that been as a change?
Well, you had to learn about it. I mean, I don't do it myself. I don't actually work in the dairy, but you have to learn about the manufacturing process, how everything works, and there's other things to think about. You've got to deal with the machinery and things like food hygiene accreditations. Quality control is much more prevalent than being just a wholesaler. So yeah, I mean, there's two sides to this business. There's that, we spent a lot of money on marketing and branding and increasing the awareness of the product. That's one thing. That's no different to any other product. That's the same as if you were selling pet food or confectionery or whatever. But in the background of everything, you've got to make the stuff, and that's it's just fancy machines and people working in a factory. It's not as attractive as the marketing and the image that we're giving off now. So there's two different sides to the business, really.
Do you have a preference as to which side of the business you prefer?
Yeah, my preference is what I enjoy the most is the sales and the marketing side of things, because that's the exciting part and that's what grows the business. You need to have everything else in place, but I enjoy, the best buzz that I get from it is when you get that new account, that new customer, or that new scooping parlour that you've been working on. The new opportunity to sell our product further afield, or the fruits of your presenting the product to a potential buyer. That is the biggest buzz that I get from this job. Everything else is like, well, yeah, you have to have it in order to get what I want. So that's the way it goes.
So thinking about all of your experience then, if you had to go through a timeline of how you got where you are today, what would that timeline look like realistically, with kind of the main things you learn along the way?
Well, I think when you're going to be running a business with the full responsibility, you have to kind of learn about everything, really. You have to know. I think, me personally, I think it's very important to know how to do absolutely everybody's job as well as them. Because otherwise, to me, that's always been important as a way to gain respect of everybody. But it's also, you need to know what you're talking about for everything. So in my time, I've spent time from working in grassroots. I've worked in the cold stores, I've worked in deliveries, I've done all that kind of things. And when I was younger, I used to do that quite often. But you also have to learn about accountancy. You need to learn about the financial side of running a business, because if you don't, you're in big trouble. So it's always a case of, like, what I've often done is got involved with lots of different parts for fairly extended periods of time over the years. So, for example, English Lakes is quite a small, it's not a big company. We're only a relatively small company. So for the past year, I've done all the bookkeeping for the business, because the bookkeeper decided to leave. And I thought, I'm going to do the bookkeeping. I'm going to do all of it. And I did it for about 10 months. And by doing that, you learn so much more about the business than what you would be as someone who was just coming in to head everything up and boss people around, if you know what I mean. So I've always found that important to get involved with everything. That way you almost become the master of every component of what you're doing.
What is the biggest eye-opener you've had when you've gone into a business and you've got involved in all of these areas for extended periods of time?
The biggest eye-opener? I don't know, really. I mean, it depends on the business, There's always things that, as you the devil's in the detail. Everything that you deal with, you look at anything in detail, you always spot lots of things.
Mm-hmm.
But I suppose in recent times, we put a new IT system in place that would help us control the business a lot more than what was the system beforehand. And that has the capability of, keeping an eye on all the data, keeping an eye on mixes and volumes and what people are up to. So the biggest, I suppose the biggest eye opener is once you've got things like that in place, you can spot all sorts of things and all sorts of opportunities. So it's always good you've got to know your business, you've got to know your product, and you've got to know your business. Because if you don't, then it's vulnerable for people to do all sorts of different things,
Yeah. It's really interesting that you said when you've got a system like that in place and you can see all the data, you can spot opportunities. That's a real interesting tell, because the amount of people I speak to that see data and think of it as terrifying and as something that blocks opportunities, to meet someone like you that goes, nope, that's an opportunity, is so refreshing.
No, my general manager and my general manager is my right hand man here, and him and I love data. Maybe we're weird.
No, absolutely not. I love a bit of data too. What is it about the data that you love? What is it when you look at the data that you think, ooh, because everyone who likes data has that thing?
Well, you can spot things like, for example, customers slipping through the net. You can say, okay, well, hang about. When you look at a monthly report of sales data and you've got everything line by line and all the components of what people are buying. In the past, when we used a basic IT system, you couldn't really spot anything unless somebody remembered it. Now it's like someone who's a complete outsider. If they were trained to look at these reports, they'd be able to spot customers slipping through the net. So you phone them up and things like that. But it's also, I suppose, on the other side of things, it's keeping track of what the dairy are actually making and what wastage happens, because things like that can happen. Sometimes there might be a problem with one of the machines and they turn it off, and then you can lose a bit of volume. Now it's like, you can question them and say, okay, well, you should have made 900 tubs of ice cream. How come you've only made 800 today? But in the past, you wouldn't have known about that, you know? So it's just a way to keep track of your profitability and everything, really.
Mm-hmm. And there really is something to be said for you don't have to boil the ocean, do you? You can look at lots of little things, like you say, you spend time everywhere. You can look at lots of little things and make lots of little improvements that add up to one big improvement.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, it's never ending. You could work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you would still spot things, you know?
Yeah.
So
get better every day. So if you had to distill down your business ethos into one phrase, your personal business ethos, what would it be?
Well, my personal business ethos linked to Lakes Ice Cream, or my business ethos in general.
Your business ethos in general.
Well, my business ethos in general. What, into one phrase? Did you say? Yeah.
One phrase.
Well, the thing that I've always that's always served me quite well, Eve, has always been communication is key, and basically you just need to everything that you state that you're going to do, just make sure you do it and do it quickly. So when it comes to selling, you do what you say you're going to do and you do it quickly. You don't hang around. So I think that is that's something that's, you know, that's pretty important. I think service is very important. You know, that the service and the service levels that you give as a company are extremely important. But also communicating the quality and giving a great image of what your business is about. It's vital. You know, why would that not be the case? You know, you have to give off the impression that your product is the best and it looks the best, and you know, to stand out from the competition.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, is that helpful, or have I waffled on too much?
No, very helpful. And I can attest to the fact that English Lakes ice cream is the best. If anyone is listening to the podcast and they haven't tried it, even if you start with the double jersey, which is my personal favorite, you will not be disappointed.
Well, that's what I believe as well.
Fabulous. And you talked
but I think for us, it's like, I mean, the product that you know, the previous owner of the business he created the recipes. He was the master of the recipes, and you know, the product quality has always been there for many years. We haven't, as part of the new ownership, we haven't changed anything on the quality. But the key thing was getting that message across to more and more people. That was the challenge, and that's been change of packaging, change of logo, change of social media, improving websites, marketing, and that investment has served us very well in the last few years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's one thing having a great product, but if you have a great product in a plain poor packaging or a plain white tub, anyone could make someone, you know, a Michelin star chef could make beautiful ice cream, but if he's only got a plastic tub to put it in, he's not going to do very well with it, you know.
No.
So
very true. Like you say, the devil is in the detail, so it's all got to come together to create the package, hasn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you talked a bit about your right-hand man.
Well, we've got a core management, a key management team here. We're only a small team of people here. There's only 17 of us in the whole company. But yeah, any business, you need to have good people in the business, and that is a massive reason for any success in any company, I think.
Mm-hmm. So what are 3 non-negotiable behaviors of people that work with you? What do you look for?
What do I look for? Honesty, reliability, and hard work, really. I want people that are going to work hard in the business. I mean, I don't expect people to work 24-hour days, 7 days a week, but generally speaking, the people that I've worked with who've done well alongside me have been people that were prepared to go that extra yard. would come into work early when needed and work quite a bit later when needed. And, thankfully there are lots of people like that. But yeah, I mean, I always like people who, my favorite kind of people that I've worked with are those people when you can explain how to do something and then they pick it up and they thrive on it and you don't need to explain it more than once. But I think that's the case for everybody.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And if you had to think about your entire career to date, and this is about you, in your opinion, what is your superpower? What do you bring to the business that is your superpower?
What do I bring? Well, I think, God, do you want me to say this without blowing my own trumpet?
No, you need to blow your own trumpet. Like you need to go for it.
I need to blow my own trumpet. I, generally speaking, I try very hard to get people to have my philosophy. And when I employ people, I tend to look very carefully, not necessarily at the qualifications, but more of their potential passion to get involved with the business. So I act quite passionately when I'm around people, when I'm around employees, I should say. And, I do have a huge amount of enthusiasm for growing the business. And I speak to the staff about my vision on a regular basis, rather than just, let's just turn up today and do what we did the other day. I frequently talk about where I want to be in 5 years' time, or where I want this business to be in 5 years' time. And then and Robin, who's our owner, is the same. He would speak the same, and we would say, listen, you follow what we're doing, and you stick along to our vision, and then you're going to do very well. You're going to do very nicely out of this as well as us.
Yeah.
So stick with us, and then you're going to do well. And our office is quite a vibrant office. It's an open plan office with 5 people in it, and we bounce ideas, and it's quite a loud and leery office. And yeah, it's quite a passionate office, and I think for me, a lot of that is down to me seeing the fruits of that kind of environment in the past, and that's what I will continue to do for the future.
That sounds excellent. It definitely sounds like you are a leader rather than a boss.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I don't like the concept of titles particularly. I don't like I'm a managing director. I'm the senior. Bloody blah blah. I mean, some people do. I know that's the case, but I'm like, listen, you've got your job responsibility, but don't look at me as. I don't really like it when people call me boss. Okay, you need to understand that ultimately a lot of things I will want the final say on. But I also try to very hard to if somebody disagrees with me, we have a great sales manager in our company called Andrea, and Andrea will frequently disagree with me on certain things. And sometimes I'll say, well, I think I totally disagree with him. We're going to do it anyway. But a lot of the time we do listen to what she says, and I'm quite happy to take it on the chin and not, that idea is better than my idea. Let's go with your idea,
Yeah.
So we do that, but that's important. I think that's very important for anybody to do, because otherwise it's just too one-dimensional.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where healthy, batting around ideas is so healthy for a business, and that's where you get the best out of everyone, especially if you're saying to people that this is our vision, this is what we want to do, and everyone's wanting to get involved.
Yeah, and I also think it's equally important to if I decide on something and everybody else is against it and it turns out to be a mistake, I'll be the first one to put my hands up and say, okay, I should listen to you guys. But again, that's important for people to do. And I've worked in environments for bigger companies where people have come up with a great idea, and then the line manager or the ultimate boss has taken credit for the idea. I would always find it very important to say that was his idea or that was her idea. It's nothing to do with me, but okay, I drove it forward or somebody else drove it forward, but it's just getting people involved with the whole story of the growth is pretty important, really.
Yeah, and that's amazing for morale as well. It's amazing how that taking credit for the people's work absolutely breeds a toxic culture, and it's just so disheartening for people.
I mean, well, exactly. And why would you want that in a business? So if you keep people involved and you get people passionate about what you're doing, like you say, it gets rid of the unmotivated toxic culture. It's that's the main reason for doing it. It's like, yeah, you get everybody else as passionate about something as you, then you're going to reap the benefits for it. If you don't, then it's going to cause disruption to any business.
Now, this is a bit of a strange question, so it'll be interesting to see what you say to this one.
Okay.
Is there a common misconception of you? Now, this can be you or it can be the ice cream industry. And if there is, what would you say to set it straight?
Is there a common misconception with me? I don't know. It depends on who I'm around.
We always get some interesting answers to this question.
Well, yeah, I guess, I can be relatively fiery at times. But I don't know. I think I've always had this ability to be occasionally quite fiery and get my point across. But generally, it's always for the greater good. And in the end, I never fall out with people.
That's good.
So I've had occasions where it's like, okay, James is not very happy about that quite clearly, and he was a bit fiery, or maybe he was a bit below the belt. But then later on, it's always like we all become friends at the end of it all, and I suppose that's a misconception that can be the case. But it's normally, but I think again that's part of my personality. You know what I mean? That goes along with being a passionate person. And to be fair, that's the same for all my key people here are all the same personality as me in that respect. We're all can be quite fiery and blunt sometimes, but not to the point where we want to beat each other up or anything like that. But
I would hope not.
No.
Was that by mistake, or was that by design, that you all have a similar fiery personality?
No, I think it's just how it is. You know what I mean? Well, it's only fiery when it needs to be fiery. You know.
Passionate.
Yeah, I think that's the case in a lot of in many companies. But you know what? The previous owner, Peter, was a similar character as well. It had a similar environment when he was here. You know, well, maybe it is the ice cream industry. Maybe it's the link to, I don't know, Italian culture, if you like, for ice cream.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely. You've all got that little bit of Italian in you somewhere.
Yeah, it could well be. Yeah.
Okay. Now, what would you tell your teenage self?
Oh, crikey. What would I tell my teenage self? Well, I mean, that's the old Rod Stewart song, isn't it? If I know what I know now when I was younger, you know? When I was younger, I think that you've got to make sure. I wish I studied harder like everybody when I was younger. You know, I studied relatively hard, but I could have studied harder when I was younger and focused more on what I wanted to do when I'm older. But also when you're young, that's the time to live your life as well. You know, which I think I did. So I know some very interesting people who are my age or older, and they've been relatively successful, and they still don't know what they want to do when they're in the 40s and 50s, you know? So, all I'll say is, you just got to focus and have some more goals lined up for what you want to do, rather than just some more long-term goals. I think is good for when you're a teenager, if you can, because it'll pay dividends for you in the long run.
Yeah. If there was a movie to be made about your life, what would it be called, and which actor would play you?
Oh, crikey. Oh, I don't know that. Oh my God. I don't know. I get some people. What's the name of the guy in The Sopranos? He sadly died though, didn't he? I've forgotten the guy. You know the movie The Sopranos.
Mm-hmm.
The gangster. I'm not a gangster, but some people say he looks a bit like me.
Who have we got? I'm having a look now. Who was actually Tony Soprano?
Yeah, Tony Soprano. Yes. No, maybe that's a bad example.
I don't think you look like Tony Soprano.
No, I don't either. But it has been commented on before by certain people. I don't really know. I don't know. It's a tough question. I can't. I'd have to think about that one to answer it because I can't actually think of any actors right now.
I'd go
Tom
with like
Cruise,
a quick.
no.
Yeah, Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise, but slightly taller, slightly bigger. Yeah, Tom Cruise actually could well be because he's got alter egos, hasn't he? So,
and he's fiery, isn't he?
He can be, but he's also can come across as you can say Tom Cruise, although I'm considerably taller than Tom Cruise. He's about 5'3" and I'm about 6'3". But there we go.
So if we did Tom Cruise on stilts, and it would have to be something about being fiery and passionate.
Do you know what? His character in Jerry Maguire could be similar to how our environment is. So maybe. Yeah. Okay. It's not a bad shout, actually.
That's a good shout. Okay. So,
but you'd have to give him some growth hormones.
Some stilts, really clever camera angles.
Yes.
In a box.
Yeah.
A few
absolutely.
I always say a few yellow pages, and then it shows how old I am, because a lot of younger people don't understand that. When you say give someone a few yellow pages to stand on, they're like, what is a yellow pages?
Oh, they've got no idea.
But that's a conversation for another day.
My son didn't even know what a DVD was this morning when I was talking to him.
Oh no.
Yeah, well, he's only 11, but he's like, oh yeah. But he's lived in a world where DVDs haven't really been prevalent, You
want to show him a VHS tape? That'll blow his mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So now I've got some quick fire questions for you. It is this or that. So you just answer whichever one you think. So, phone or text?
Oh, phone. For
email
business.
Or meeting?
Meeting.
Tea or coffee?
Ooh, both. Coffee.
Coffee. Beach holiday or skiing holiday?
Oh, again, both, but skiing.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Sweet or savoury?
Oh, I'd have to say sweet.
And does pineapple belong on pizza?
Yes, I like it on pizza.
Ooh, do you know, we're getting strong on the yeses, which is good.
Yeah.
Now, every guest leaves a question for the next guest. So I will be getting one off you before you go. The question that's been left for you by the last guest was, if you lived for another 100 years, what do you think life would look like?
If I lived for another 100 years, oh crikey, that's a very good question. I'd like to think that it wouldn't be that dissimilar for what people get involved with now. I think that, for me, the biggest change for when I was very lucky to grow up in the late 70s and the 80s, when you look back and it was brilliant, and there was less distractions of phones and social media and things like that. And I think that has been a massive change. I would love it if you could revert back to not having the whole concept of mobile phones and technology and games and all everything that's available to my son's generation, for example, and go back to how life was back in the 80s. I think that would be great if I could envisage a perfect world, if you like.
In another 100 years, you think we'll all go back to Nokia 3310s and we'll be playing Snake?
Well, yeah, even before Nokia 3310s, exactly, yeah. Back in those days, they were cleaner, but the only difference is we didn't know about all this stuff that's available now, did we?
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, no, that would be something that I think would be great, and then that inspires creativity. Why did you get great rock bands? In the 60s and 70s and the 80s, and great music, and now it's like you get a bit of it, but it's not as much. It's because people are not as bored, so they've got other things to keep their minds occupied.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said about being bored.
Rather than let's sit down and learn some songs on a guitar and learn how to play it for hours and hours and hours. Oh, I think I might go and play on my Nintendo Switch for an hour. I don't know.
Yeah, there is an interesting study actually about why you need boredom to be creative.
I think so. Yeah. Well, I'll give you an example. My son's learning electric guitar. He's been learning guitar. He's just got electric guitar, and he really wants to be a electric. He's passionate about learning how to be a great guitar player. He'd love to be. He watches fabulous guitarists and thinks, I wish I was that good. But then he'll practice for half an hour, and he'll go, right, my mate's calling me. I'm going on my PlayStation now because we've got a group conference call with all my mates from school. We're going to go and play on that. But if he didn't have that option, he probably would have stayed in his bedroom for like 3 hours playing guitar rather than for half an hour. I think that's quite a yeah. So I don't know. Maybe that's Does that answer the question?
It's a real change. Yeah, absolutely. And is there anything else you would like to say to anyone listening to this podcast about English Lakes Ice Cream, or about you, or about anything?
I don't know. I think my philosophy is you've got to live life for the moment. Live life for the moment. Whatever you're doing, we're all striving to do in the world of business or anything in life. I think we're all striving to have something better and be more successful, or everyone's looking towards the future. But whatever you do, just don't forget about the present. The present is the time. You've got to do that. And the other thing is try not to worry about anything, because everyone I know worries about things constantly. And I think that's something where worrying gets in the way of things. So even if you have got things to worry about, try not to worry about things. I know that's easier said than done, but I think people have got to remember that life is too short, really.
Absolutely. That is some excellent advice. Thank you very much.
Well, yeah. Ambitions are great, but they get in the way sometimes as well of the present. So, so it's all about getting that fine balance, isn't it? Really.